Well, spring is here, more or less, and many people love to use their weekend for some time in the garden.
And you can sharpen your skills with a hands-on workshop at the Botanic Garden in Traverse City, and it's coming up this weekend. Here to tell us about it, Executive Director Matthew Ross. Hey, Matthew, how are you?
Great. Thanks for having me on this morning.
Yeah.
We're glad to have you and all of the potted plants that you brought.
Yes.
I know they'll look much different in a couple months here, but tell us about, before we get into the event itself, tell us about the Botanic Garden. This has really become a kind of a crown gem of Traverse City, if you will. And for people who don't know about it, it's one of those surprise gems when they hear about it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, wow, I didn't even know this was here. So relatively new history.
Yeah, definitely. So in the last 10 years, our volunteers and our board have really pushed forward an amazing effort to bring a vital resource to our community. We're 26 acres. We have programs all throughout the year. This is just one of them that we're talking about with spring pruning. But we also have free family programs, and there's one right after the spring pruning class. So every month we bring together community members for free programming, also opportunities to hone in on your own gardening skills, and we're always looking for volunteers, donors, and supporters of the garden.
Amazing.
I remember the 10 years ago when all this first started, and I mean, I was excited about it because the Barnes Park, the historic Barnes Park, is just a beautiful area.
I love it.
Oh, yeah.
But frankly, when it started, I just had envisioned what it started with was just this patch of grass, and it'll be a little friendly community garden, and good job, and we'll call it good. But 10 years, like 26 acres, you guys have just exploded in your mission, your purpose, your popularity too.
Exactly, and we're continuing to grow. There's construction underway right now. Yeah. We have a huge project underway. It's transformative what it's done to the Commons area, what it's been in terms of a resource for Traverse City, but also that revitalization of what the mission of Beauteous Therapy once was for the hospital itself.
Yeah, and tell us about the event that's happening this weekend.
Yeah, so on Sunday, you could join me from 9 to 12. We're pruning. This is a fee class, so there is a small fee for it, but you're learning how to handle dormant stems, dormant plants, and turn them into something beautiful next year.
Okay.
So I don't just have to toss it in the trash like I usually do.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I was telling you before that my mom has such a green thumb. Her garden's beautiful. I did not get that gene. I need to learn about some pruning. So can we?
Yeah, let's do it.
Show me some tips and tricks so that I can have a good spring
Dynamite.
season. Yeah.
So in front of me here are two really interesting plants. They're probably the most talked about plants in our region. They're hydrangeas. So whenever you talk pruning, it's great. I had an apple tree. I could show you how to do that. I've got some red twig dogwoods and all kinds of other things here. But the most talked about plants happen to be hydrangeas. And these are beautiful ones I got from Pine Hill Nursery. And this shows the two major types that you're going to be dealing with. Those that bloom off of old wood, which are called macrophyllus, or they have like a large head. And in that instance, it's pretty easy. You take your bypass pruners, you look at the stem, you scratch down until where it's green, and then make your cut. So this is called a heading cut. I'm just taking out the dead, diseased, and dying wood.
I didn't even think about finding where the green starts.
Yeah, and that's a great tip, just scratching your plant to see where it's alive from. If it's brown, black, diseased, if it snaps.
I've learned more about gardening in the last 10 seconds.
Bill, usually the plants that are green are healthy.
Yeah, it's a good sign if it's green, right?
That explains so much about my front yard.
Okay, but when it comes to doing this though, when do you start doing it?
Right now is the optimal time to do all your dormant pruning. So right before bud break, right before things start pushing out their energy, you can make your cuts.
All right.
Now this one is a smooth hydrangea. This blooms off of new wood. So if I want to control its height, I can do what's called a thinning cut. So I take the whole thing down, back to the base,
all the way down to the bottom.
Clean that out. Now, that's the whole plant right here, and then underneath it are the buds. They're going to produce the stalks for this year, and then the subsequent flowers.
Okay.
So this is a thinning cut. A heading cut is where I cut off part of it, and I go right above the bud, like this, and I still keep this intact. So this will help flush more growth, but by thinning, I'm actually taking out that area and pushing forth growth from the bottom.
So you'd go around and you'd cut all the stems?
On a plant like this,
like
I'd be able to plant or take and cut all the stems of this plant if I wanted to, down to about 6 inches or 3 inches.
Talk to me about
I could let it go taller if I want it to be a bigger plant next year.
Man, okay, so talk to me about how important the knowledge is for this. If I do the pruning of this style on that plant, am I going to mess everything up?
Reverse. So if I cut all the stems down on this plant, so if I went through and did thinning cuts and took all this off, what I did is I actually broke away what was going to be my blooms for this year. So it's the opposite. So I didn't kill it, but I'm going to prevent it from blooming, and that's a major issue for hydrangea macrophylla or big leaf hydrangea.
Do you find that to be a common error that people
Yes.
do?
Yeah, that's one of the most talked about errors in pruning is when to prune your hydrangeas. And there's a lot more to this science. There's a lot more to the art and science of gardening that I hope people sign up for our classes, this one and others, to learn more about.
Can I ask how did you get started into gardening? What made you passionate about it? Because I can tell that you are passionate about it and you know a lot.
Most definitely. Started when I was 3 years old. I got some
Wow.
chives from my grandmother after coming home and eating the front lawn. My dad asked me what I was doing. I went back to Grandma's house and she gave me some chives. I still have some of those plants.
Oh my gosh.
And they've really sparked a curiosity in horticulture and have had a 20-year plus history in public horticulture at places in Philadelphia, Toledo, Ohio, was a professor, and then found my home here in northern Michigan
That is
to
so
bring
cool.
all that knowledge I had to our region.
Well, we're happy to have you here.
Yeah, I was going to say in the email that you guys sent over the first time, and you've kind of demonstrated it here, that pruning is both an art and a science.
Yeah, most definitely. And that's one of the things I hope gardeners take to heart is that, you know, you're not going to ruin anything. The plant's still going to be alive. You're going to be okay. But it's really, if you want that next level in your garden, pruning is one of the
flourish,
ways to get
yeah.
there.
Gotcha, that makes sense.
Amazing.
All right, so what do we need to do to register? Is there a fee? Do we need to bring anything with us?
Yeah, most definitely. So online, if you go to thebotanicgarden.org, we have a series of classes. This happens to be the next one in a whole lineup of great programming. If you go on there, if you click on the register here button, it'll bring you to our Eventbrite page. This
Okay.
class is $29 for members and $39 for non-members. There's still space available. And once you register for the class, it gives you instructions on where to go and what to bring. So if you have your pruners, it's a good idea to bring them with you because we're going to be hands-on in the garden.
That's
Very
awesome.
cool.
Keep in touch with us because I'd love to send our reporter Jill out
Yeah.
on the scene to kind of be
Oh,
in
yeah.
the garden with you for one of your upcoming events.
That'd be
If we could
fantastic.
do that, so that'd
That'd
be
be
great.
awesome.
Thank you so much for
Yeah,
being
thank
with us.
you.
Matthew from the Botanic Garden there in Traverse City. We'll share this interview and all the details over on 9and10news.com. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, guys.